Welcome everybody. My name is Jeff Amerine. I'm the Managing Director and founder of the Startup Junkie, and we work closely with our partners, the Conductor. Welcome to our digital library. During the course of many different episodes that we're going to feature, you're going to learn about Lean Canvas, how to run a startup, how to build a startup, customer discovery, and a variety of other topics. Welcome. We hope you enjoy it. Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Lean Startup and the Lean Canvas methodology. It's one of those things where if you can remember what you learned in 5th and 6th grade using scientific method for problem solving, it's exactly the same sort of technique. But in this case, it's applied as a simple and straightforward way to validate or invalidate the business concept or the business model you have in mind. So we're going to go through several important concepts when we talk about it. First, I'll give you a little bit of background on what it is. Really, the Lean Canvas or a business model canvas is a single page that captures important assumptions about your business, what problem you're solving, who your customers are, that sort of thing. We're going to go through each and every one of these things. Versus writing a comprehensive 50-page business plan, the Lean Canvas methodology that's been developed over the past 20 years or so gives you the techniques to put down your key assumptions quickly in one page. So what does it look like? It's actually a 9-box single page. On the far left-hand side, you'll see you've got the problem statement. The problem is the embodiment of what it is that the unmet need you're really trying to address. The customer segments, that's who actually cares enough about the problem you're solving to pay you to solve it. Other aspects in this include the solution, and we like to think of that in terms of the benefits. Things like a unique value proposition. So classic unique value proposition would be what Walmart says, save money and live better through everyday low pricing. That's what we're looking for in unique value proposition. Things like competitive advantage. How are you going to build an ongoing economic moat or advantage over others that might be trying to compete in the space? We'll talk about cost structure and revenue streams, also how you're going to measure progress through key metrics, and then how you're going to take it to market through channels. It's very simple, 9 boxes. So first, let's start a little bit with the problem. What are we talking about when we consider the problem? The problem is the list of the top 3 aspects that define what that problem is, or the unmet needs. Sometimes people get hung up on this concept of a problem. It could just be a market opportunity that no one is addressing well. It should be specific to the customers that you're thinking of, though. So you also, when you look at this, you say, what are the existing alternatives? How are people solving that problem today? What are they doing? Sometimes the solution is the status quo, or there might not be a big enough issue there for someone to actually pay you to solve it. So it's super important to consider what else is out there in that competitive landscape. The next question you tend to ask yourself is that problem worth solving? What is the economic benefit to solving the problem? So very few people or companies are buying technology for the sake of technology. It's got to be something that they're going to derive great value from. And you've got to be able to measure that in terms of return on investment. So when you do fill out this section of the Lean Canvas, define the 3 most important aspects of the problem that you're trying to solve. So what's an example? If you were in a retail space, one of the biggest issues that's faced in retail is out of stock. Not having adequate supply in stock, as we've seen in recent times, can cause real customer upset. People leave. In fact, it's a pretty significant percentage of lost retail sales based on out of stock. And this occurs because you've got a lack of real-time inventory. That's a good example of how to describe a particular problem. So the major issue is it's out of stock, and then there's 3 different aspects of that. So what not to do? The common thing, particularly for highly technical people, is they tend to all fall in love with the solution that we have in mind. Don't immediately go to your solution when you're going through the Lean Canvas process. It's really important to not talk about the solution right away. So for example, you might say, well, we need to build a more accurate inventory management system if you're thinking about out of stock issues. That jumps immediately to the solution, and it doesn't dig in enough to what the real problem is. So don't assume the solution too early in the process, and don't immediately talk about it. One important aspect of this whole Lean Canvas process is something we call customer discovery, and we're going to have a completely separate section where we'll go through that in depth. But the idea initially when you're going through to understand whether or not your problem is worthwhile is to talk to at least 10 customers. When you do, you try to identify the demographics of the early adopter. You try to determine whether or not this is a must-have problem. Is this something that people really absolutely have to have, or is it a nice-to-have or a luxury item? Then you can describe how the customers solved the problem today. So you're going to ask open-ended questions of at least 10 people initially to try to find out, is this something they care about, or is this just a better mousetrap that no one would really pay for, or a problem that really is not a problem at all. In determining customer segments, you got to find out who are your target customers. Think about it in terms of who will buy first, the early adopters in the classical sense. The early adopters are the ones that are going to be most open to trying something new. So who are they? How often do they buy? The demographics. Think about it also in terms of if it's a corporate sale, who are the economic decision makers? Who are the technical influencers? Who could possibly be the saboteur? So understanding those early adopters is really important. And when you look at it, you've got the innovators, the people that are always trying stuff, maybe tinkering, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggers. This game is played for lean canvas and finding those early adopters early in the process of validating or invalidating your business model. And there are key players there, as we described. The idea of an economic decision maker, this is someone that ultimately writes the check. A technical influencer in enterprise sale, a recommender. So think about the economic decision maker might be a chief financial officer or someone with budget authority. The technical decision maker is someone that's validated the technology. The influencer, the saboteur, might be someone that actually is going to get displaced by virtue of the new solution coming on board. So understanding all that is very important. What not to do is to assume that an industry or a company is not a customer, right? So an industry or a company is too broad. You want to get into the specific consumer or customer personas to understand who your customer really is. So as an example, if you were selling into a major retailer, it might be the vice president of supply chain technology that you would want to be targeting. So don't use generalized categories. Get specific. Unique value proposition. Sometimes this trips people up when they're going through a lean canvas development. The UVP, or the unique value proposition, is that simple, compelling message that says why you are different, why you're worth buying, and why anyone would care about what you're doing. So it needs to be instant clarity, a headline. Save money and live better is a good example. Absolutely positively from FedEx is a good example. Those unique value propositions that people are going to immediately associate with your brand promise. That's what you want to get to. So examples, Pinterest would have one, a few million of your favorite things. Square would say, start accepting credit cards today. HubSpot's unique value proposition is create marketing people love. Spotify, soundtrack of your life. And then the lean canvas is this whole concept of spend more time building versus planning your business. Be efficient and don't waste time on doing things that don't add value. So the tips, short and memorable, brand promise or mantra, what's the impact? Why should people care? And use your customer's language. So the checkpoint, as you go through it at this point, you want to make sure that you've got alignment between your problem, your customer, and your unique value proposition. There should be a symmetry there. So you got to ask yourself, is this a problem that these customers really care about? And is my unique value proposition something that's going to resonate with them? Is it going to make sense to them? Now we finally get to the solution. And I know this is kind of a non-intuitive way of looking at it, but the solution at this point, you need to think about what are the top 3 benefits of your solution. For example, when I went to buy a large screen TV, I really wasn't buying it because it was 85 inches and it was ultra high definition or it had some other specification. I was buying it because I didn't want to miss a single play during the college football season. I wanted to make sure I could see the replay. So the benefit to me was a better viewing experience. So think about it. When you articulate your solution, not only describing the product in terms of specifications or the service in terms of attributes, but what are the benefits that are going to convey to the customer or the consumer? And then at that point, once you're capturing this, does it mirror those problem statements that you made as you've gone through it? So again, tips. Customers don't buy features, they buy benefits. Be descriptive of what really matters and describe that minimally viable product. So this is a concept that's kind of unique within the lean canvas methodology. It's the 80% solution that you're going to deliver that solves the majority of things that your customer really cares about. That's what you're going to deliver first. So Watchful is a good example. They detect and visualize the in-app changes of your competitors. They reveal their A and B testing and yet to be released features They show visual changes to UX and UI and product evolution. They measure parameters such as speed, network utilization, battery drainage, and more. I mean, it's a really interesting tool. Competitive advantage. So as you think about competitive advantage, this is how you're going to build sustainable economic moat around what you're doing. Sometimes people think that competitive advantage is something like trademarks or other intellectual property, patents, copyrights, trade secrets. And that's true. That is one aspect. But it can be anything that can't be easily copied or bought. So, and a way of sustaining it. So for example, it can be things like you've got scale already, or you've got infrastructure that's hard to replicate, or you've got a really experienced team. You've got some super high SEO ranking. You're always coming up on the first listing on a Google search. Or you've got really important relationships to end customers. But that collection of things is what gives you the advantage over your competitors. And it's something that if you don't have those sorts of things, then you're just competing on your ability to execute and on price, and that's very difficult for an early stage business. So revenue streams must meet a required ROI. So you got to be thinking about what is the return on investment? How are we going to make money with this? Software, it's a subscription-based service, and there's an upfront installation cost possibly, and there'll be a downstream annuity. It can be anything that generates value, but you've got to figure out how it is that you're going to get paid. A lot of times people will go through this and realize there's not any kind of realistic way to make money at it, so you exit the lean canvas at that point. How large is the impact and does it move a needle? So as an example, if I'm on the buy side of a large corporation, I'm typically not going to work with a startup unless there's something that might be 10 times better that they're doing than one of the large incumbent players that sells into enterprise. So it's got to be something that's really important, that has a good value justification for me. And if I'm on that buy side, it's got to either drive revenues up or decrease costs. I don't make decisions based on anything else other than that. So an example is a percentage increase in store sales, a decrease in the cost of labor, increase in top-line revenue, decrease in bottom-line cost reduction. If you do the job of a chief financial officer when you're selling into large enterprise, your chance of getting the sales a whole lot better. You have essentially come with a financial model that says, this is how much it's going to cost, this is how much you're going to get in terms of cost reduction or revenue increase, this is what the payback period will be for buying what we're doing. Cost structure is super important to understand. This is where you've got to understand the capital expenditures required, the operating expenditures required, and what the payback period will be. This is where you've got to get creative in really understanding what's going to allow you to be cost effective so you can make money on it, and also so that you're at a point that you can actually get something sold to large enterprise. So when you're considering costs for this box on the lean canvas, it can be things like research and development, your cost of goods sold, raw materials, variable cost on a per unit basis, customer acquisition and marketing costs, technology infrastructure, labor and staff. It's sort of a compressed expense view from your income statement. That's what you're going to put in here with a little less detail. It won't be nearly as detailed as a typical income statement because remember, speed is the key here. The next thing we'll talk about is key metrics. This is how you measure the milestones of the progress in the experiments that you're doing to validate or invalidate the business model. It should be measurable. It should include milestones. It's really those things that gives you a measurable view of are you succeeding or failing in what you're trying to do. And it typically needs to be something that is a big enough issue that it's going to add value or reduce risk in the business. So as an example here would be a pilot or beta performance, or maybe we got a proof of concept rolled out. As you begin to roll out, it could be the number of stores you're in over a percentage of time. It could be changes in the actual performance targets like the out-of-stock rate, labor cost per store, a variety of things like that. Channels are how you go to market. So this can be through digital marketing, it can be through direct sales, it can be through channel partners, a variety of different ways, but this is your path to customers, understanding how you're actually going to sell. This is the point where you need to think about the mechanics of your sales cycle and your sales process and how all that works. And it can be social media, search engine influencers, pay-per-clicks, earned media, email, webinars, a whole variety of different ways, and multiple touch points. They typically say on any given channel, it requires at least 7 touch points. So there's the lean canvas. You've now seen all 9 boxes. The whole point of this is to validate your assumptions. It forces you to get out of the building. All too often, we'll sit in a room somewhere and we'll do some third-party research and we'll come up with some assumptions and we'll talk to family members or friends, which is pretty worthless in terms of their opinions. The whole point of this exercise is to get out of the building, talk to customers, stakeholders, and influencers, ask good open-ended questions where you don't have confirmation bias, you don't try to give them the answer you want, and you're not talking about the solution, you're learning and not selling. That's how it works. Hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to the next episode.